Hello and welcome back to the Midlands Outdoors channel today, here at Coombswood, just for a nice walk to check out the views, talk about a bit of history and much more, so let's get into the video. So here we are at Coombswood, one of my favourite places for a walk. You've got tons of history up here, you've got some fantastic viewpoints overlooking parts of Halesowen, further away into the distance, I really do love it. But just by the side of me we've got Hawne Basin that has a lot of history that really does date back. So here we are, this is Hawne Basin. It's got some really stunning views right away into the distance. You've got the factory units right away at the back, Summer's Forge, and you can just see the basin sticking right away out. You've got the canal that stretches all the way down and goes all the way to the bungalow in Neverton. This canal used to stretch all the way down that way and link on to the Lapper Tunnel section to go all the way to Selly Oak. Much has really changed, all that canal has really vanished now, so it only cuts off at this point towards Hawne Basin. It has quite a lot of history because it does say here, originally a colliery basin and wharf properly constructed around 1798, almost as soon as the canal was completed. The name Hawne Basin is thought to have derived from the 18th century Old Hawne Colliery, which hauled its coal from Halesowen lower down in the Stour Valley by a horse-drawn tramway up to the basin. Old Hawne Colliery closed in 1883, and around 1902 the Great Western Railway built a loop line and sidings to serve Hayward Forge and Hawne Basin. So it says here the basin was then able to interchange goods from the narrowboats to the railway. The large nearby Stewart's and Lloyd's factory then used the canal to ferry their tube products to the basin for transfer to the in-rail trucks. The railway sidings finally closed in 1967, and shortly afterwards Stewart's and Lloyd's large fleet of narrowboats were no more. So you can just see quite a lot of history on Hawne Basin. Since 1977, Hawne Basin has taken a new lease of life and has been regenerated by the Coombswood Canal Trust. A registered charity, in 2007 the trust was able to purchase the freehold of the basin, thereby securing its future. So you can just see the basin today, all the narrowboats all lined up ready to go and go further down the canal. Most of the boats come from various places along the canal line to come and moor up here to stay here for quite a while. But standing by the side from here you can just get a nice view of the Summer's Forge factory, which really does date back a bit. You can imagine how far that factory really does date back. Tons of history here, I really do love it, and it's a fantastic sight to see Hawne Basin from the side here. So you can just see you've got the best views over here, just at the distance over there. You can just sort of see parts of Halesowen sticking right away out. Got some nice walking paths down here, so it goes all the way straight down. I'll mention about that a bit later on. You've also had Pottery Farm. I think it was actually situated somewhere at the back over this way. I'll tell you about that one as well. And it does lead up that way. You can actually go to Halesowen Park, I believe, if you walk up there, cross the road and then go straight away over. But where we're heading is to a nice view section where you get the best of the views. It is really stunning. It's really completely overgrown over here since the last ever time I've come here. I mean, you see all the paths are slightly overgrown a little bit, but this is the way we need to come to get to the best viewpoint, and it is quite steep to walk right away to the top. Wow, what a steep hill that was to come all the way up. You can just see halfway up here already, and the views over in the distance are really spectacular. You really do get views of the Black Country. I can just see the back end of Brawley Hill right away into the distance where the flats are. You've even got back end to Dudley. I can just see the church sticking right away out, that's in the town centre. Stretching all the way across I can see various other things. Got St Andrews in Neverton, the church on top of the hill. And then further behind there should be Merry Hill, but I don't think you can see it because the trees are blocking it out on this corner. I'll tell you what, I can sit here for hours and just enjoy the views. It's just really spectacular. Just noticed the cloud really building up as well in the distance, so I think it is going to rain a bit later on. So it's just forecast a bit of sunshine and it's got a cloud over them rain. You just see the canal area down the bottom where all the factory units are. So that's actually where Stewart's and Lloyd's used to be situated in the old days, all across there, the old tube works. But just imagine for one moment all the old industry, what would have been here in the past. I mean, up to there was pottery farm. So it says here it was the last upland hill farm within the West Midlands boundary. The now defunct Bellevue potteries had kilns in the nearby top field and manufactured in the late 19th century flower pots, ornamental path edgings and other products. Some of the barns have been dated as built somewhere between the 16th and 17th century and are reputed to contain timbers and foundations of the Saxon origin. The barns have now been converted to residential occupancy. So I will show you the old pottery farm buildings which are right away at the top. They've been remodernised and some of them are actually still there today. So you can just imagine that really does date old. You've even got the Green Lane. It says dates over 1,000 years old and has connections with the Saxon period of 400 to 1066 AD. So we will come back to the Green Lane in a little while when we walk all the way back to the bottom. Let's go and check out the views right away to the top and also show you the modern buildings of Pottery Farm. So right, here we are. This is actually the highest point of Coombswood and it is one of the best views to get right away of the distance. You can see already, we can see views further over the back end of Halesowen now, but if we go over this way to show you, you can just see the views already. Wow, this is really spectacular. Views of Clent Hills right away in the distance. Back end of Hasbury area right around the back. You've got Halesowen College. Even further over into the distance you can just see the top end to the Coombswood section now, all the industries right away to the bottom. Even further back of views into the distance you've got Merry Hill, you've got Brawley Hill where the flats are, the Delph. Even further in the distance over that way you can just see really far. I might actually have a zoom in a little while to show you my new phone. It's really spectacular range and I'll show you how far it zooms in. But right, this here is actually Pottery Farm. So if we can try and show you, there it is right away into the distance. All those back buildings are the modern section to Pottery Farm. So you can imagine that really does date old. I can sort of see some very old architecture and style with the window frames right away to the top. It is really nice seeing that. You can imagine there would have been kilns stretching somewhere further the back over this way. But I'll tell you what, this is what I've come to see today, is the views. Let's go over this way and see what we can see from this side. Oh wow, this is absolutely amazing. Check out the views of all the Coombswood Green Wedge stretching right over the back. Even the sections up this way, you can imagine you can spot quite a lot of wildlife up here because you've got the tree lines right away at the bottom, the back tree lines which go right away the back over that side. But the views are absolutely stunning. You can sort of about see Halesowen in a minute coming round the corner. You've got the church, you've got where the town centre area is right away at the back. I'll have a zoom in my phone in a minute on that one. And you can just see further of the range of the Black Country stretching from this side. It is really a stunning view. I tell you what, it's a great way to end an evening, coming up here and seeing the views. I could spend the rest of the night up here till it gets really dark, just seeing the views right away to the back. But let's have a zoom in and see what we can see. Let's show you my phone and what it can actually do. So right, this is my new phone. It's 108 megapixel and it has 50 times zoom. Really impressive. Let's get zooming in. So right, here we go. So this is actually a zoom test on the phone to see how far we can zoom in. Let's just start off by zooming into Halesowen. We're at 9.2 times zoom, but you can just see Halesowen right away into the distance. You've got the church, you've got the Asda, you've even got the Cornbow Centre right away visible. Sorry about the shake a little bit, it's very hard to keep it steady. But zooming out you can just see Clent Hills, panning all the way around. You've got the back end of Hasbury. You've even got the bottom views down there of all the industry that's on the top of Coombswood, stretching all the way across. Wow, what a spectacular view. Even far in the distance, if I zoom in, you can just see the hills right away at the back. More hills over there. There's even a church sticking right away out in the distance over that way. How cool is that? Zooming out. And you've got the sunshine right away into the distance. Very stunning. And like I mentioned, parts of the Black Country, you can see Brawley Hill, where you've got the flats, the Delph. Zooming out, you've even got further over this way, you've got Merry Hill, sort of in the dip. Zooming out again. And then even over that way, you can just see the waterfront sticking out. More back areas of the Black Country, you've got St Andrews in Netherton. Pan over this way a little bit, you can just see Dudley town centre right away into the distance. And then you've got further over this way, back areas now, and you've even got Turner's Hill right away to the back. How stunning is that? You can see further over into the distance. Might do a bit of cinematics now for you, but it's just so nice to spend hours here. Then we'll head down and go and show you the old Holloway, which went all the way to the bottom. But it was really spectacular to see those views. So the thing I'm going to show you now is the old Holloway that went right away to the bottom, so it's literally just round this corner. So there we go, we're going to be walking down there, but you can just see coming back down this way you've got back area views once more. So you can just see the views of the back end of B&Q, Halesowen from this section, even round the corners there. It's just spectacular. But the best highest point is the way where we've come from, right away to the top where Pottery Farm was actually situated. But I tell you what, it's really lovely coming down this Holloway. You can just really see it just dates old. You've got very old trees. Imagine this tree's been here for many years. You can see where the weight's grown out from several sections, giving it a nice Holloway feel with trees growing from either side. I think down the back end corner here it's really old. So it says here, hedgerows to either side of the green lane or Holloway that passes through Pottery Farm have been dated as to be over 1,000 years old, which suggests a possible connection with the Saxon period of circa 400 to 1066 AD. The ancient lane may have also been a long distance drovers road, providing a route at one time between Wales and the Midlands. There we go, a bit of history there for you. So you can imagine that the Holloway really does date back. Let's go have a little walk down there and go and show you this section. So you can just see it's really stunning down this bit. Very old Holloway. So it does go to the bottom and you can lead onto the Dudley No. 2 canal by the Coombsbridge. But many of the trees down here, some of them are really old. You can just see this one that's coming up. That's an old one. And you see all the trees lined up from this side. How cool is that for a view? And then this one right away here, going all the way to the top. Nice cool view of that. But let's have a further journey on Coombswood and see what other things we can actually find. So right, this is another point of Coombswood, what I really do love. You've got all the trees surrounded on either side, all the way down there, providing a good place for wildlife to inhabit. You'll see some at the moment. It's very so relaxing. And over this way you get some more spectacular views. So right, this is what I really do love about this area. Just amongst all the overgrown areas, you've got a view sticking right away out. You can just see Halesowen College area just onto the corner there. Bits over the back, you've got the areas where Dudley fields, the Pedmore fields over the back over that way. Even further over this way you can see views right away into the distance. Some nice sunny skies right away over there, but it's going really dark. It's getting darker and darker as the night draws on. Like I mentioned earlier, I think we've got rain on the way, so we might be lucky enough to get down to the bottom before it actually starts. But I tell you what, that's a nice viewpoint, but it doesn't beat the viewpoint what I seen earlier at the very high point. But it's spectacular. I've seen quite a lot of wildlife every time I've been to this section. Tons over the sides and at the back over here as well, right away in front. You've got some tree lines further over the back in the distance. So there is some more secrets with Coombswood and a lot of history. Just at the further back areas over this way used to be something called the murder house. It's no longer there, but there is some sort of remains, I think like of a little oven, but it's completely overgrown. It is believed that a triple axe murder happened here. There is a big story about it somewhere, so you can actually find it online. I will actually mention it to you when I get down to the coombsbridge. There's an information board telling you about the axe murders here. But I think the house actually used to be situated somewhere in the tree line, right away in front at the back areas. There used to be a house there. It is quite gruesome actually. You imagine that murder really does date back a bit. So I will actually come back to the triple axe murder a bit later on with a bit of information about it. But I want to show you some cool things up here, what I wanted to show you for quite a long time. So hopefully we can still actually get to them. They're really interesting. So what I want to show you is some World War II bunkers. It's very interesting because they must date back quite way back a bit. I don't know too much information onto whether you can still get inside them, but it's worth a shot if we can tonight. But you can just see onto the corners here, you've got nice views over the back over this way. Wow, it is quite an eye point over this side. So right, what I want to show you today is these. I believe these are some sort of old bunkers, possibly from World War II. You see the entrance going right away down. This one's actually been filled in, but you see some very old things sticking right away out. I think there would have been a latch onto it, I believe, but that's actually missing. The one we're looking at is right away here, which is kind of cool. It goes all the way down and then into a massive bunker, but you can see the stairs right away to the bottom, and then the entrance is actually down onto here. So right, this is actually the entrance into the bunker, right away down onto there, as you can just see. Hello? And what I find cool about this is the brick wall, and then looking right away in how it goes further into the back. That is so awesome. Right, let's try all this, let's go in. But wow, here we are. You can just see the style of the bunker. Got tubes going right away to the top. Got some cool features into here, old stuff on the walls as you can just see. And the entrance where we've come right away in. Let's go and check it out. Wow. So you can just see from this point here, it's not very big in size. If I get a bit brighter, you see there is stuff in here, some chairs, a lot of bricks piled up into a corner. got some bits and pieces into here, but you see the style of the wall and the ceiling. It's making me wonder if this is definitely a World War II bunker, where you used to come down, like an air raid shelter maybe. So it is making me wonder if it's an air raid shelter for the factory units in the old days, an air raid shelter for the houses that was right away at the back. I think it could have been an air raid shelter. But you can just tell by the architecture right away above. I was originally thinking storage bunkers, but I don't know, it's really hard to say. But the way they're built, I'm going to say air raid shelter. There's lots of old stuff into here, some parts. There's even old machine stuff over here. Let's just go over and show you very carefully. I've just noticed this, that is so old, whatever that is. It's definitely industry. And you see the ladders going right away to the top. Whew, right, that's about it. Let's get out of here. Very cool to see that. So there we go, how cool was that? That was actually the bunkers. I know quite a few locations thanks to a chap called James, an old work colleague who told me about these and to come and check them out. So credit goes to him for telling me the locations of those bunkers. I haven't forgot till this day, and you can actually still get down them. So here we are at the Dudley number 2 canal, stretching all the way from the bottom and going back all the way to Hawne Basin. Many years ago this canal was prosperous. You had the tube factory right away down there, Stewart's and Lloyd's. But you can imagine in the old days what the canals were really like, transporting goods all the way across, coal, steel, many other items were transported across the canal lines. It is believed we've got more canals than Venice, believe it or not. And with the canals, all the stuff was actually transported by narrowboat, which you see today. It was actually all horse-drawn across towpaths. That is actually why we have towpaths across several sections of the canals, enabling you to walk today. But there is really much history behind the Dudley number 2 canal. I mean, going further down by the Bungalow section, there's much history there. And then you can imagine back in the old days when it went all the way through Lapple Tunnel to go all the way to Selly Oak. The history down there was probably a lot as well. But it's a shame we've lost a chunk of our canal section, which has really vanished. You never know in many years to come if they ever do restore it. But yeah, it is really fascinating. You can just see with this section of the path, it has never been cut back. You've got to batter your way all the way across. And I'm literally getting stung by stingers. It's completely overgrown. Well, I tell you what, it is a nice walk. If you've never done this one, then I'm going to have to say, definitely get yourself up to Coombswood. It's one of the nicest areas in Halesowen to come and take a look at. And especially the canal walk, because when the canal was actually back open, because they're doing work on the old hill section, you can walk this canal from the section at Coombswood, go all the way over, cross the road, then get back on the canal down the bottom by Station Road and keep on going. You can really go far on the canal lines, they really do take you to places. And it's really good if you've got bike as well, like me. I've got an electric bike. You can just really travel so far onto the canals with those. And it's a great way of getting across the place. It's much more faster. So I think coming up any minute should be Coombsbridge. I think it's literally just down onto the corner, I believe. So here we are, this is Coombsbridge. There's quite a lot of history behind this one. So let's go right at the top and I'll actually tell you about it. So there is a bit of information behind Coombsbridge. It says the present steel footbridge was erected on the 3rd of March 1993 by volunteers from the Halesowen Abbey Trust, who coordinated the work and organised the fundraising. It replaced the traditional humpback brick bridge that was demolished by the Home Guard in 1944 as an anti-invasion measure to protect the canal side factories involved in the war effort. So it does say here the original bridge was built sometime around 1796 to carry farm traffic on the old Green Lane over the Dudley No. 2 canal. Also the Green Lane and Coombsbridge, or Pepper's Bridge as it was known locally, were used by factory workers and miners walking to and from their shifts from the late 19th century. But you can just imagine the original structure of this Coombsbridge must have looked really cool. It's a shame that it's changed to the way it has today, to this style of it. There is quite a lot of history. I mean, just panning around to show you if you can actually see it. There's lots of history. This is actually telling you about the tube works, if I just pan around. Once the largest steel tube works in England, it was established in 1860 by Abraham Barnsley and operated from 1903 by Stewart's and Lloyd's Limited. The site is now occupied by Modern Business Park following dismantling of the original works during the 1990s. There's even more down here. You've got Coombswood Colliery, and the records show that coal had been mined as early as 1281. In the 20th century, the deep mine was owned and operated up to 1953 by Hindleys of Netherton, Titanic anchor fame. The coal was discharged into narrow boats via a narrow gauge mineral line. The mine was closed in 1953. So it says here you've even got Haywood Forge. It says their forge was actually taken over by Derbyshire man Mr Walter Summers in 1867 and is one of the remaining heavy open die forges in the country. And then you've got the murder house. This is really interesting, what I was on about earlier. So it was actually located where I showed you around about on this map. So if I just quickly show you, it was actually marked J on the map. It was where I showed you right away at the top. So there is a bit of history. It says there, the murder house on the 5th of February 1878, a small cottage on Coombswood was the site of a horrific triple murder. Joseph Harris, aged 27, a collier, had been recently discharged from Parrick Asylum, whilst his mother-in-law, Phoebe Jones, was taking breakfast to her husband at the Coombswood Brickworks over the Wedge. Harris, believing that his wife Amelia, 25, was unfaithful and was going to send him back to the asylum, he murdered her, his daughter Eve, aged 3, and fatally wounded his older daughter Alice, aged 7, with a kindling axe, which had then been hid in a baking oven. So you can just see, I was on about information earlier about an oven possibly still being there, but it's completely overgrown, and that's actually where the murder weapon was actually hidden. There's lots of information I covered about the Holloway pottery farm. There's just so much over here. You'd imagine that the industry back in those days when the canal was prosperous, having the Stewart's and Lloyd's, I bet it was really nice seeing the factory there when it was right away to the bottom. There is actually still remains down there of old brick walls where the factory actually used to be. But it's really cool to see the Dudley No. 2 canal today the way it is. All overgrown with trees now. Back in those days the trees wasn't even here. It was just all open land, and you even had the coal mine right away at the back, which turned into some other industry. Then you had the factories with the canal snaking all the way around that went into the Halesowen Park, which is there today. And you still got the dry side of a Lapple Canal that is actually derelict on that side, which you can walk, and that stretches all the way across and comes to an end when you come to the Manor Way. But back in those days, the canal used to go over there, past the Abbey, and snake round till it got to Lapple Tunnel. So there's quite a lot of history, but it's really cool to see Coombswood itself. You can imagine back in those days, like I mentioned once more, the industry, what Coombswood was really like. The triple murder on the board sounds horrific. But yeah, for me, the Midlands Outdoors, hope you've enjoyed it, and see you soon on another walk. It's been really interesting to come to Coombswood and check it out one more time. It's time to head home before it rains. See you soon and take care. I'll tell you what guys, that is absolutely stunning. Just coming back from Coombswood and the clouds with all the sun coming all the way down. Check out that for a view. A bit further down there you can just see the sunshine a little bit peeking through the trees. But a beautiful sight for the end of the evening.